But let's start with parenting, shall we? We welcome back John Ramos into the house. Ramos was gone for the better part of 6 months on paternity leave.
That's 6.5, Doug.
6.5 months, actually 6.5 weeks. But if you've raised children, you know what I'm saying to be true. If you haven't, you might be intrigued to hear this. If I were to ask people who don't have kids or have little babies, what's the hardest age to raise little children? They would almost all say, I'm guessing 2, right? They call it the terrible 2s for a reason. Right? When they're a baby, and Ramos has this beautiful little baby boy, Noah, they don't do much, right? They don't. And do you love the baby? Like, yeah, you love the baby. The baby's cute and it coos. Some cry more than others. Some have more hair than others. But they're all generally adorable, right? They sleep most of the day. They don't do much. They start to develop a little bit of a personality, and depending on if they're boy or girl, and depending, like early walkers or late talkers, late talkers or early walkers. So the first year, you're just trying to get it to where you can get them to sleep through the night. When they're a year old, they start to do some stuff. They start to walk around. They start to toddle around. No, while no one would say that's easy, outside of having a colicky baby, which we've had, it's not the hardest, because you give them a pass because they're babies. Right? They're not. Nothing that they're doing is intentional. Nothing that they're doing is because you have any expectations for them. They're just babies. And matter of fact, even the sleeping through the night thing, that's more a you thing than a them thing. When your first child, you're so deathly afraid of something happening to them that you're constantly going in and checking on them and waking them up anytime they cry, you come in and help them. They have to learn to self-soothe. First year's a wash. First 2 years is a wash. But the terrible 2s is what most people would say is the toughest age to raise a child. That's when they throw fits. That's when they have a personality. That's when they learn the word no. The same is true with having a quarterback. What's the toughest year to have a quarterback? Well, the rookie year, right? Everybody moves faster. Everything is more, the defenses are more ornate. The players are all better. The level of competition is such a dramatic jump from college to pros. Your rookie year, you're inexperienced. You haven't played in a real pro offense. You haven't prepared for all these different schemes. You're still a boy. You're playing against men. If you were to ask somebody on the outside of the NFL, what's the hardest year to have a quarterback, they'd say rookie year. If you ask somebody who hasn't had kids, what's the hardest year to raise children, they'd say terrible 2s. Well, in the NFL, I would actually point out that I think the second year is harder. Here's why. Between the first year and the second year, now you're not on the media tour. It's not all about hope. Now there's raised expectations. You got a little experience. You've earned the right to be a starter. You're the face of a franchise. And instead of simply running the plays that you're given the entirety of the playbook and the chance to work within the scope of the offense and occasionally change a play or two. You're not supposed to see half the field. You're supposed to see the whole field. And the challenge is, and why it's more difficult in that second year is, you're given more responsibility, and yet you don't really have experience. And oh yeah, by the way, the rest of the league has started to develop a book on you. What you do well, what you do poorly. They know who you are. They know your tendencies. And oh yeah, by the way, you still are really, really inexperienced. No one signifies that more than Baker Mayfield. Right? Last year, he was the number 1 overall pick. He didn't start the season right away. The Browns got off to a disappointing season. He takes over, and suddenly they move to 7-8-1, and people act like he's the savior. Last year, when he made mistakes and errors which caused them to not make the playoffs and had successes against the bottom of the league, we gave him a pass. Why? He's a rookie quarterback. He was a walk-on. Sure, he won the Heisman Trophy. Sure, he's the number 1 overall pick, but he's a former walk-on. He's only a rookie. And the Browns won 1 game combined in 2 previous years. Any sort of success should be fawned over. But now, here he is 2 games in, and we've pointed out, leads the league in interceptions since week 8 of last season. Now, you get the sense he's having a disappointing year. They're 1-1 on the year. They get the Rams coming in this Sunday night. And because of the lofty expectations, maybe it's because of the attention that he's drawn, the commercials that he's filmed, because he was the number 1 overall pick, but because he's in his second year and he's supposed to be experienced. Truth is, he hasn't started an entire season yet. He has not even, if you combine the 2 years, he hasn't started 16 games. Hasn't played a playoff game. Has an inexperienced head coach. Odell Beckham Jr. has only played 2 games in a Browns uniform. It's different style, different scheme, different personnel. We're asking of him to carry a franchise which hasn't been successful really since they came to be as an expansion franchise. But it's only because he's in his second year. Ask somebody who has kids. What's harder, when they're terrible 2s or when they're 3? When they're in the terrible 2s, they may throw a fit, but they're still sleeping in a crib. They still have diapers or maybe pull-ups. There's still a safety barrier for them. There's still a net underneath them. Once they get to 3, now they're in big girl panties or big boy underwear. There is no safety net when they make a mess. They're no longer in their crib. They're in a big boy or big girl bed. And your expectations of them are raised because you're not 2 anymore. You're 3. You're going to preschool. You're a big boy. You're a big girl. They're still only 3. They've been on this earth for 3 years. They don't really have the tools yet to manage their anger, their frustration, their growing sort of insecurities that they don't know are insecurities. They're still needy because they do in fact need you. Just like quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield doesn't know everything. He hasn't seen everything. This was NFL insider Charles Robinson yesterday on the show.
It's funny to me that there's not more talk about Baker Mayfield being a turnover machine because he has. He's been a turnover machine. And if you go back, I think I want to say the line of demarcation is when Freddie Kitchens took over that offense. Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in turnovers, and yet no one's really brought that up. When you go back to the success of Cleveland last year when they really had things rolling, they were really running. They were a running team. They ran the football really, really well. And I think this year there's been this sort of design dynamic of we have OBJ, we have Jarvis Landry, we have, the tight end, we have all these guys. Now we got to throw the ball and become more of a slinging team when I still think they're probably at their best when it's balanced and Nick Chubb's running the ball well.
No question. I mean, they've been inept on third down, most important down in the National Football League, and they've turned the football over, which is what you can't do if you want to win games. I'm not giving Baker a total pass. I told you Tuesday after watching him Monday night, he's not playing well. But I'm simply pointing out he's trying to raise up a franchise which has been in despair. He's being coached by somebody who's wildly, maybe unprepared for all that he's taking on. The franchise went out and added great skill position players, which, by the way, has never really been the root of success in the NFL. And the expectations are so high, they're almost untenable. And because he's the 3-year-old, not the 2-year-old, we have unrealistic expectations of his performance when this is more the norm than the exception. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus everybody else who's awesome here in Fox Sports Radio.